Okay, here is, started playing. This is a video of trimming, me trimming a quarter horse mare, 23-year-old, had chronic laminitis, I said a big had because she no longer does. Ouchy footed, wasn't expected to live very long, past that 21-ish year. And discovered TACT trimming and saved her life. It's also saving many other horses' life. It's not some fancy magic trimming method. It is purely science, and it's based on the anatomy of the horse's foot. So here we go. So this horse has been using this. I've been using this trimming method for 2.5 years, and I'm going to share with you how I trim this horse. So the first thing that I do is I observe the hoof capsule, looking for any jamming, angle of tubules, the redness, inflammation, cracking. These are things that if you're not familiar with this is about knowing anatomy of the hoof, and that's number one that you need to do is learn about the anatomy of the horse's hoof. Sometimes I will get the horse to walk to observe soundness. I just had that done the other day because the horse was showing, maybe I had to change my trimming method. So here I go. Right hand foot is what I'm doing. Right off, I can see how the tubules are bending. Right here, it's kind of cool. The foot was washed, but the colors here are great. So these tubules, I've been putting pressure on her heel to come up, and these tubules are responding and literally bending. Uh, so that's a good sign, but I do see some jamming in the pillars. When you really see it right there, you see how these tubules go whoo, up like that. They should be coming out more like that. And I have other pictures on my Facebook page and where I actually mark up the hoof and I show with colored lines where the tubules should go. That's not, this video is more about watching the trimming method. So I'm getting an idea right off that I know that I'm going to be going after these pillars because she has so much jamming, right? It's literally the impact from this region being too long, these pillars being too long is literally affecting up here in the coronary band and causing this to be jammed. So looking at, potential frog stay, looking at the coronary band or her bulbs on the ground. Um, she actually did go through a little bit of kind of mud fever, and you'll see some other pictures of this, but it is clearing up now. Um, and I'm not sure what the cause of that was. And then we can really see how those tubules are bent. Not the tubules, the growth rings, the interconnections between the tubules. You see they're a little bit better up here, which is great because you're growing a new hoof capsule. But for sure down here, like that bending, that's because this part is too long and it's jamming up into the coronary band. And she's also still got some underrun. Her heels are just not in the right spot. We just keep working on that. So I have that in mind when I'm thinking about trimming her. So now I check the caudal view. So I'm looking on the sole. Many times you see pictures that relate strictly to the sole, but we look at the whole foot is important, including the cartilage, um, P1, P2, P3, like the alignment. I mean, we can't see P3 and P2, but we look at kind of above the foot, looking at knee movement. Um, so anyways, on the caudal, I'm looking for health of the frog, length of the hoof capsule, any thrush bars, health of central sulcus, just kind of getting a whole view. Okay. If I look at this, I see that this is pulled down. This will be all periople in here that I know I need to remove. I see her bars are not too bad, but they certainly need to be trimmed back. But I see a difference in the height of this is the hoof capsule here, how much higher it is above the sole. I think this is about 8 or 9 weeks. Kind of got left a little bit before she was trimmed. So that's something that I have to keep in mind looking at the lateral side. Frog looks fairly healthy. I don't see any. I see I'm going to be able to get find her central sulcus or clean out her central sulcus. Caudal grooves look pretty good. Sole, like feel pretty confident. I'm starting to see some sole ridge here, but she still has some separation between her capsule and her sole, her white line. She does have, oh, it's a little bit stopped, a little bit blurry, but she does have still a fairly long frog, so I know I'm going to look for her apex or find her apex and take this frog back a little bit. Okay, so I start with boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. That's so important. When a horse is distorted, which many are, and you're correcting the external capsule to fit correctly to the internal foot, the living tissue part, you've got to set up boundaries. And because in the horse's um, survival or way to keep kind of their foot together is the way I describe it. They will do things like, their frog, periople is a big one. The periople grows is in the wrong spot. Frogs are in the wrong spot. Bars are in the wrong spot. Heels are in the wrong spot, etc., etc. So right there, I'm cleaning out the seat of the corn, looking at the white line, which is actually yellow. And I'm actually cleaning out between the bars and she would probably have a heel buttress between the bars and heel buttress because I still want movement. She still, because of what I saw externally, she still needs these tubules of the heel need to move back. So the way TACT teaches you is that you release between the bars and the hoof capsule. So there I am cleaning out the frog, maintaining those boundaries, and also the health of it, taking off the any kind of uh, potential thrushy areas. This is not a thrushy frog. So there's I'm looking for the apex. Keep my knife fairly flat so I get smooth um, removal of some sole. That that bar was longer, a little more overgrown, so I'm spending a little bit more time on it. This mare was very uh, active. She was actually in heat. So I was feeling between the sole and the capsule um, about the height, the health of that sole. Okay, this is me continuing on looking to find that apex, that nice connection between the frog and the sole. You need that mark. It sets up for the balance in the trim. So I was talking about these regions right here. They used to be huge. She'd have these large I would almost say like a buildup of sole that was found in this region right beside our frog. And when you look at the internal anatomy of the hoof, this is not a kind of a natural thing to have. So that was something that was slowly being um, disappearing as this horse goes through these changes. That I'm seeing less and less of this buildup of sole in this region. So I want to get those bars in boundary straight, right? And that's what I'm pointing to. Actually, I'm talking and pointing to those um, straightening up those bars. She did have some bruising in this region, indicating that it's a little bit late in getting to removing this sole, some buildup of sole that wasn't exfoliating. So um, it's like a callus, or I don't like using that language because there's different meaning to callus and when we're talking about soles, but it's like a buildup of sole that's not exfoliating, and as a result, it was causing bruising to the healthier sole that was underneath. See your nice white line that occurs in the seed of corn, right? Very nice. She didn't have that for at least a year. So this is something that I have just started doing after about 2 years, maybe just under 2 years of trimming. Linda describes it as scribing, and I'm just very, very lightly going through this region. Again, I don't do this to a new horse that I'm starting until I know if they can handle removal of a little bit of sole. Okay? Um, so you have to be very careful with this one that I'm doing. You see how just a very thin layer I'm taking off. There, I'm peeling that capsule to sole. Really trying to open that up between her bars and the hoof capsule. Getting that frog out of the collateral groove because it's holding those. Actually, I'm going to just go back here. So this bar was more underrun, and you can see that frog, there's more buildup of the frog in this collateral groove. So I have to remove that because I want that capsule to, um, or sorry, those bars to move back as well. And then, of course, the heels to move back. And so there, I'm taking that out. So again, continuing to set up boundaries. And the big thing is this periople. Man, is that stuff tough? And does it keep the hoof in a distorted state? So there I'm taking a thin layer off. There's a little bit of frog stay that I'm taking off there just to keep it clean. So I saw there's little cracks in her heel. I'm not sure what they were from. She's not unsound. Um, so it'll be something I'll keep an eye on the next trim to see what they're doing. So I think of it as like peeling a carrot. That periople you don't want down there. So rounding the frog, kind of it's to match the internal, the corium that grows the frog. there I am working on the central sulcus, just making sure it's healthy in there. There was a little bit of kind of the white, it'd be some type of microorganism, and many times you see that white material, and the next thing you have is some thrush. So we always like to clean that off. Yeah, this is her. She was so fidgety. She's normally not like this. So this is the mapping. So I always think about this as, as a carpenter, if you're building something, you don't kind of look at it and go, oh, I think it's about this size or measurement. What's the saying? Measure twice, cut once. So I'm like measure, 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 measure. And because our eyes trick us so much, and because the capsule can be so tricky in its distortion, you need to go to some type of measurement. So this is me. I'm, looking back, I'm eyeballing it. I'm saying, do I have that? I'm trying to find that center line. So then I can investigate and look at balance. Okay, I can't go by what the capsule is doing on the medial lateral side. I need to say, here's my center line now, because this would be the most accurate part. Is if I have that center line, then I can look at my lateral medial balance and see where I'm at. The little mark at the front, that's for measuring the dorsal. Then I'm going 1.5 inches. Again, these are all just starting points. Looking at our heel, our goal is 2 inches. Again, it all depends on the horse. You get to know the horse after, trimming them 3-4 times. You kind of figure out their distortion a little bit. It's constantly changing. And so I know for this horse, lateral medial balance is the issue. So now I'm just showing you, whoopsie, that I'm going to measure her dorsal, right? I'm carrying that line back up the front, following a tubule, right, along. I'll probably follow that tubule right there. And she's got 3.5 inches of dorsal length. When I started her, I had to take her back to 3 to put the pressure to get these tubules to go back. She did not have good hoof capsules. So I know with that measurement that I can take some height down. So now I don't always have to do this, but I'll do the, just for the video I showed at the 1.5. So you keep the symmetry. You draw the line and you say, okay, I can already see that there's more out here than there is here. So in my mind, I'm saying I've got to take more off on that lateral side. There was more jamming in the medial side. This capsule was so much higher. And then I could actually feel it when I drag my hands right there. I can literally feel it on the outside of the capsule. I could feel a ridge of that, that capsule. It's like walking on your fingernails, I guess. How can we have an idea of the horse's foot? Our anatomy is so different, but you've got a nail and you have an internal structure of your nail that grows it, and that is similar. That part is similar. Okay, so rasping now. So this is going to be to take height down, get that capsule so that we've got a sole capsule weight bearing. Eventually it'll be a sole ridge, and I feel that she does have that, a little bit of it. So I'm going to take her through to the white line and both pillars. Remember, pillar, pillar, pillar trim. This is me opening up the quarters to give the tubules room to move back. And I'm getting that capsule down to the sole until I just start to rasp through it. She does have quite a bit of sole in this region. And that's the way I like to rasp. It's almost like a round motion. And then I just come really close into that heel. I don't take any height off the heel, but I clean out the quarters. And this is all taking heights down right now because my rasp is flat. And then I go into beveling. I'm going to take those pillars right back because they were jamming so much in the when I looked at that observation of the front capsule. And this is me using both hands, trying to not distort the hoof capsule by my strength of being right-handed. So I got far enough so now I can check. So here I'm just showing a picture of, I'll play this through. This is actually the finished, but you can see that space I'm talking about here. So I put some pressure on the dorsal, took some height down. I've taken some out of the pillars. In fact, that I went back and took a little bit more out of those pillars. And I'm leaving space here for these tubules when they're like this. When they move back, they're going to be touching the ground. Okay, that's just a measurement, right? When something's at an angle, when you stand it up, it's going to take up more space. And so I've left that space so that those tubules have some room to go. These growth rings look fairly nice on this side, a little bit better than the medial side. Okay, so here we go. So this is me getting right down on the ground and seeing, as much as possible of that weight-bearing region of the hoof and what's going to be happening when she's walking. So there's the finished. This is the bad mud fever she had. Like I said, it's clearing up. But what is really, as far as ignoring this part, and you look at the capsule and the coronary band and the frog, I feel confident that this is a frog stay, that this coronary band being up like this, when I started her, these were great big swollen bulbs that were not on the ground like some horses that I've done, but they sure were in the wrong spot. So she slowly, her internal foot is coming up, her heels are coming up, collateral cartilage is getting into its right position, digital cushion is returning to its right spot. I don't know whether she'll fully recover. She was, she's aged, so you don't know. But you can see those growth rings are more, she's more underrun on this side. So, and I know that that was an area that I needed to fix when I looked at trim. Okay, and there's a picture of, I just threw in a picture here of the finished, where I did much better on the pillar side here, and I've given her that space and a little bit of jamming in the heels to push those heels back. But this is shaping up nicely. So it's just smoothing the edges. I use a finer rasp for this. So I'm going to work on those quarters more, as I said, to give them more space. And there, so I go to a switch to where I'm doing flat, taking height. And then when I get into the sole, right there, I'm starting to get into the sole. So I'll switch to um, some mild beveling just on the outer, harder capsule. Just working on those pillars again. Then you'll watch me really work on the lateral pillars. I described that when I earlier looked at when the foot was down, that those were still long. There I go. So just smoothing as if it was worn naturally by herself. Just a little wee, I just like to take a little bit of an edge off. So I'm looking for the hoof capsule to be somewhat proportionate around her whole foot. That's not possible at this stage. She's got a very thick capsule in the pillar region, and that wood is probably from her years and years and years of having high pillars. So I just added something there where I'm always checking my work. Measure 4 times, measure 5 times. So I just drop just a straight line, and I take it down that center region, and I look for balance of the white line. Because the capsule's distorted. So if I follow the capsule, I'm just going to keep on doing the same distortion, which does not match the internal foot. More checking. My hair gets in the way here. So you see, I'm talking actually right there. It didn't work very well, the audio, so that's why I'm doing a voiceover. I'm looking down her caudal, but the problem is that my knee's underneath here and it's pushing her, and that can, affect the that view. I could be twisting it, and she was fighting me a little bit, so it was difficult. Usually I grab her in the hock and I let it hang so that I'm not kind of affecting that caudal view, but I'm looking for balance now between the heels and all the way around this sole. I would say sole ridge that she has. Um, and so just an overall balance that I'm looking at. So what I saw was that lateral heel was just a slightly above the medial heel. So I'm just very, very small moves with your rasp. She didn't know I was videotaping. So then I'm come back and cleaning out that bar hoof capsule connection, which eventually I'll be able to leave that, but that's not the goal. This is not a maintenance trim. This is a corrective trim. And I need her heels to still move back. And then I found, more bruising underneath. So straightening up her bars, kind of the last little bit, setting up those boundaries. Oops, that's really bad. She does have a lot of soul in this region now. It's quite lovely. So the next part is a series of pictures where I actually show um, kind of the journey this horse has been on. So this is so delightful. I found this from 2010, and it's interesting now when I look at it, I go, oh my gosh. So because I did the right hind, I just focused on this one, but you can see the jamming that's going on. You can see how these pillars are so much longer. It's not so much, but longer than the dorsal part of our capsule. And anatomically, that is not correct. The internal foot is not like that. And it grows this hoof capsule. So this is a distortion. You can really see it here. Sunken, poor thing. No wonder she was so ouchy. Okay, so this is 2019. This is just after started TACT, doing lots of marking with the um, doing the measurements. Almost just under a year later, so still struggling. But then this was the trim, the April trim. So still got, this needs to be cleaned up a little bit out here. I just actually saw her again and did some more tweaking on this. You still see there's more jamming on the medial side. Things to keep thinking of. You're not going to fix it all in one shot. Okay, this is the thing I was talking about. So this is September. So this is a little bit after, maybe a month or two after she'd had TAC. But these bulbs, this bulb region, you can see this way down here. And that all light colored stuff, that's all periople, all over her frog, um, her heels, I don't know, an inch and a quarter. They were not good. So a year later, so you can see this is coming up a little bit. Frog stay region's looking a little bit better. She still doesn't have much digital cushion in there, but her heel height would be at 2 inches. And then you can really see this again, other than this nasty looking mud fever she had, but you can see how much higher this coronary band is, but still fighting with that periople. You see that white all over there. Okay. So our lateral view, it's allowing space for her hoof to move. These are in different angles, so they're hard to compare. Sometimes it's hard to match up the pictures. So this is what I really like is these tubules, these growth rings that are not crashing down back here, but they actually come out. You really see how this is coming up, right? That she's just getting a heel, and it's also getting in the right position. It's not down like this. It's more upright. And this matches more of these tubules. So these tubules here are almost parallel to these tubules here. Okay, medial, I only have a couple pictures of this. So this angle here, different than these tubules. You can see how these tubules are straight here, and they're run forward a little bit more, a little bit more. Okay, and that was after the trim. See, I cleaned up those pillars. This is sole. This is when I started. Um, yeah, this apex was in the wrong spot, and I was originally measuring from this spot. And once I figured out where the apex was, she was way too long here. So then I started taking more off dorsal and pillars. You see the thinness of this capsule is just weak. I mean, this is from the underrun part, and it's just weak capsule. It just falls apart. Bars are laid over a little bit. Heels would have been inch and a quarter. So it's a year later, looking better. Still have a problem with our lateral medial imbalance. You can see the length here versus the length here. So that was from this trim. Again, that's that leftover bruising. She's sound on this. This was from leaving too much of that sole and not exfoliating it for her. I drew this line in here because it looks like I'm like trimming off that direction, but I wasn't. I don't know why it looks like that. But this is my center line, and you can see that white line, how there's balance on either side, maybe a little bit up here. But good frog, cleaned up the frog, got the periople off, took the bars, put the bars back in their boundaries. You still see that leftover there from that one being so laid over. Cleaned up her apex, and I'm just saying, here you go. I've corrected the capsule slightly. Now leave her be and let her move. They do it. It's natural. It's genetic. It's in them. So there you can see those nasty bulbs and periople all the way down, all over her frog. It's still coming out 2.5 years later. There's a much more together foot. Just looks way better. Just where a coronary band is, and again, still got to get this periople. I just keep removing it. Every trim in between trims. Anyways, so to end, I learned all this from Linda Harris's The Anatomically Correct Trim. If you're interested, there is her site. Okay, thanks for watching.